Hello and welcome to the Hidden Perfectionist, a guide to imperfect progress in health, life, and everything in between. I'm Ashley, a coach, recovering perfectionist, and your reminder that you don't need more discipline, you need less pressure. This podcast is for the woman who's pretending like she's got it all together, but deep down feels like she's always behind. If you've ever procrastinated because you couldn't do it perfectly, or put your health on hold because life felt too overwhelming, you're not alone, and you're exactly who this podcast is for. Around here, we're ditching the all-or-nothing mindset, getting real about burnout, and learning how to make sustainable change, one messy step at a time. Let's go! Hello and welcome to the very first episode of The Hidden Perfectionist. I'm Ashley, a women's health coach and recovering perfectionist, and I'm so excited that you're here. Before we get started, there's something that you gotta know about me. I am a firm believer that my brain just works a little better when I have a fun little drink in my hand. So at the beginning of each episode, I'm gonna let you know what my drink of the day is. And today, it's a Great Poppy. All right, let's get into it. I started this podcast because so many women are struggling with perfectionism and they don't even realize it. Because perfectionism doesn't always look like what we think it does. It doesn't always look like a perfectly organized planner or a spotless apartment. Sometimes it looks like a pile of laundry in the corner of your room. Sometimes it looks like ghosting your to-do list for days. Sometimes it looks like putting things off for weeks, not because you don't care, but because you care so much, you're afraid of doing it wrong. That's what makes it hidden. You might seem laid back, you might look unbothered, but inside, you're constantly overthinking, putting pressure on yourself, and beating yourself up for not doing enough. It's not about being perfect. It's about being terrified of doing things imperfectly. So we procrastinate, we avoid, we freeze. We start and stop a million times and blame ourselves every step of the way. That's hidden perfectionism. And it's sneaky as hell because it doesn't show up in shiny, obvious ways. It shows up in burnout, in inconsistency, in the guilt that never seems to go away. And that's why I created this show, to help you understand why you feel stuck, and to give you real tools that actually work for your brain, your life, and your capacity without demanding more than you have to give. Let me give you a few examples from my own life, because once I started spotting these patterns, I couldn't unsee them. Well, let's talk planners. I have tried so many planners. I've probably spent more time researching the perfect planner than actually using one. I've tried every layout, every brand, even bullet journaling, where I custom designed a planner just for me. I used my own art backdrop to draw little icons, decorate pages and themes and stickers. I made it cute because I thought maybe if I put so much effort into making the planner that I would feel motivated enough to actually use it. And still, they all ended up in a drawer, half filled and abandoned. Here's the thing. If the only place you write something down is in a notebook you keep forgetting to open, it's not helping. It doesn't matter how pretty it is or how many people swear that it's the planner for people who struggle to stick to planners. Yes, I actually Googled that. If it doesn't fit how you actually live, it's not a system, it's a setup. And yet, every time a planner didn't work for me, I didn't blame the planner. I blamed myself. I thought, you can't even stick to writing in a notebook. You're never going to get it together. That is hidden perfectionism. Same goes for organizing. I love it. In theory. Give me a cozy video game where I get to organize a virtual room. Obsessed. I'll spend hours moving little digital plants around and finding the perfect spot for every little pixel. I also love watching organization shows. I love the aesthetics. I love the color coordination, watching people open a pantry and see everything perfectly lined up in clear jars with cute labels. But when it comes to my own space, not so much. I have a graveyard of clear plastic bins in the back of my closet. Some I use and love, others I bought thinking this will finally make me organized, and they're just collecting dust. You know, the ones where in order to use them right, you're supposed to take out the old stuff, add the new stuff in, and then put the old stuff back on top so it's all rotated. That's not a system for making life easier. That is creating double the amount of work, and I just didn't have time for that. It looked good for a couple weeks, and then I had real life to deal with. Groceries to put away, no time to re-jar my goods, and suddenly I've got the pretty containers and the box of pasta sitting on the counter because I didn't have time to do both. But when I decided to ditch the containers, did I think to myself, oh, this system just doesn't work for me? No. I thought to myself, why can't I be like all those people that I see on TV? Why can't I have the aesthetics? Why can't my pantry look like theirs does? And I beat myself up for having to give up on it. And it didn't just apply to the type of organization that you could see, whether I was using my planners or organizing my kitchen or even putting my clothes away after I finished folding them. They're sitting on my dresser instead of in my drawers right now. It applied to my health journey too. I had spent so much time looking at different diets and figuring out which one was going to work for me. It worked for so many other people, it had to work for me. I'd start a new routine, I'd figure out what I was going to eat, what workouts I would do, how I was going to track it, and go all in. Everything had to be perfect. Every workout completed, every meal prepped, every habit tracked. But the second I missed a day or slipped up, I'd spiral. I wouldn't just adjust, I'd quit. Because in my mind, if I couldn't do it exactly right, I'd already failed. That's hidden perfectionism. Not because I didn't want to take care of myself, but because I believed that the only way to be successful was to do it flawlessly. And that kind of pressure, it doesn't create consistency, it creates burnout. That kind of pressure didn't motivate me. It kept me stuck in a cycle of starting strong, burning out, and then beating myself up for not being able to stick with it. And the wild part, most hidden perfectionists don't even realize that's what's going on. They just think they're lazy, or unmotivated, or bad at following through. But really, you've been trying to live up to an impossible standard for so long, you're burned out before you even begin. You procrastinate, not because you don't care, but because you care too much. You avoid starting things unless you know you can do them right. You rewrite to-do lists instead of crossing things off. You beat yourself up for not doing enough, even when you're doing everything you can. That's hidden perfectionism. It's not loud, it's not obvious, but it runs the show behind the scenes, constantly making you feel like whatever you're doing still isn't enough. And this shows up everywhere, but especially when it comes to your health. Because when you're a hidden perfectionist, you don't just want to eat better. You want to eat perfectly. Meal prep everything, track every bite, hit every workout, and when you don't, you feel like you failed. So you start over, again, and again, and again. You get caught up in this cycle of all or nothing thinking. I was doing so good until I messed up. Once this week is over, I'll get back on track. Let me just restart on Monday. But if every week ends with a restart, you're not failing. You're just stuck in a system that only works when you're perfect. And let's face it, no matter how badly we want to be perfect, it's never going to happen. That level of pressure just isn't sustainable. So if you've been stuck in that cycle of trying really hard, falling off, beating yourself up, and starting over, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken. You don't need more willpower. You don't need another reset, another diet, or another fresh start. You need to take the pressure off. You need a strategy that works for your real life, not the life you wish you had, with unlimited time, energy, and motivation. And that's where this podcast comes in. We're going to talk about how to build momentum without needing it to be perfect, how to take care of yourself in ways that feel sustainable, how to let go of shame and guilt you've carried for not being able to stick with it, and how to actually start trusting yourself again. Because real progress, it's not about doing everything. It's about doing something consistently, imperfectly, and with a whole lot more grace than pressure. And that's what we're going to unpack here, one episode at a time. In upcoming episodes, I'll break down common perfectionist patterns like all or nothing thinking, fear of failure, and avoidance, and show you how to shift them in a way that feels doable and realistic. But for now, just start noticing. Start noticing when you hold yourself to standards you'd never expect from anyone else. Start noticing when you hesitate to start something because you're afraid it won't be good enough. Start noticing the moments where you're so focused on doing it right that you don't do it at all. That awareness is where everything starts. Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of The Hidden Perfectionist. If this resonated with you, I'd love if you subscribed or shared it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you want to say hi or tell me what hit home, come find me on Instagram at ashleylyn.fitness. Next episode, we're talking about the all or nothing mindset and why it's keeping you stuck. Until then, grab yourself a fun little drink and give yourself a little grace. You're doing better than you think.